And here.
So in a former life, I was a speech and debate coach. And as a speech and debate coach, a lot of times it was my job to motivate students. So you may not know what speech and debate is, but it's a competitive activity, and students will compete in a tournament, and they hope to advance to elimination rounds until they finally get to a final round. And when this is at the national level, it's like a pretty stressful, huge, big deal. Okay? So this scenario would happen to me. And I can remember one vivid time it happened. So I have two students, student A and student B, and they both made the elimination to the final round, okay? So they're both going to the final round and competing in a particular event. Now, and it's my job basically to get them ready for this round, okay? So let me describe these students to you, okay? So student A joined the team after they were already at Marion. Student A is a student who calls me dad. Student A is highly motivated by sharing their personal messages in their speeches. Student A takes losses really personally and oftentimes wonders if they're ever good enough to be there. And student A is a brilliant, magnificent, successful performer. Okay? Student B. Now, student B I recruited in high school. Plucked them out of high school when they were like a sophomore. Student A is very competitive. Student A always calls me coach. Okay? Student A is highly motivated by trophies. Student B believes that they're probably going to win even if they aren't, every time, all the time. And when student A gets hit with a loss, student B uses it as motivation to do better the next time. Okay? Student B. Highly successful, highly talented competitor. They're both going to an elimination round. Now, will I use the same message on student A that I will on student B? Not if I want them to be successful, right? Not if I want them to be successful. Each competitor requires something unique to make that magic work, okay? So, my name is Dr. Kyle Kellum. I'm an associate professor of communication. This is...
Hi, I am Drew Stewart. I'm the current director of the Marion University Speech Debate Team and an assistant professor in, you guessed it, the Department of Communication. And I also occasionally trade sweaters with Kyle.
My God. We are going to talk to you today about rhetorical sensitivity. Okay? So, rhetorical sensitivity is a term that was developed about 50 years ago by some communication scholars, some old crusty white guys. I think they might both be dead, but they had some brilliant ideas, okay? Basically, rhetorical sensitivity breaks down to 5 concepts, okay? 5 concepts. And I will go through them. You do not need to memorize these, but I will go through them so you understand, okay? So, according to Hartenberg's, the rhetorically sensitive communicator will, number 1, believe that we embody many different and often competing roles. Okay? No, not dinner roles.
Well,
yeah, you know what I mean.
But I think you bring up a good point. I'm always just myself as a human person with my own needs and considerations first. And then it's like, well, what am I in my job? And then
roles. Roles. Yeah. 2, attempts to use the clearest language possible in any given situation. Attempts to use the clearest language possible in any given situation. So avoids things like jargon or bullying kinds of speech.
Think about this. If it could possibly violate a Franciscan principle, okay, that's maybe the edge of it, right? That's maybe the extreme of it. And there are a lot of little ways in the middle in which you could, tick somebody off, or maybe not even get the exact message you want across, right?
Okay. 3 is willing to undergo the strain of adaptation. So when it's not working, they're willing to adapt. 4, this is a big one, knows how to discern between too much information and not enough information. So that friend of yours that like has too much backstory in relation to telling you just like how things are going, that person is not being a rhetorically sensitive communicator. Okay, all right. And then 5 appreciates that there are many different ways to say the same thing. Okay? If you had a military father, this was probably not something that you got a lot. Okay? There's one way to say it, that's the right way to say it. Okay, so, yeah, please. Yeah.
So, just real quick, there are many different ways to say the same thing. I think sometimes, whether it's in relationships, in the workplace, in the classroom, in different settings, you might feel anxiety to adapt or change your answer because you might feel inauthentic at the moment. Or you might feel like you're being fake and not giving your truthful response. The truthful thing is how you actually react in the moment, folks. And that authentic person, that identity that you hold inside of your own mind, chances are the other person on the other side isn't perceiving as much and isn't gleaning as much from you as you are putting on yourself. So
those are 5 characteristics of rhetorical sensitivity. And I don't need you to memorize them. Okay, I don't need you to memorize them, but I want you to be aware of them. Okay? Because you got to think, well, why in the world, of all the things you could talk about here today about communication, why would rhetorical sensitivity be so important? Well, this is why I think so, okay? It's because change is one of the only constant things we can rely on in our world, right? We live in an absolutely dynamic world.
wait, hold on, I didn't hear you do your math.
We live
Okay.
in an absolutely dynamic world.
One more time, can you say to the people online?
We live in an absolutely dynamic world.
Can you imagine that we're doing this in this format with these on? Yeah, dynamic world.
And in that dynamic world, people change, our environments change, our organizations change, our cultures change, we change, right? So why would we want to learn a skill that keeps us static in one moment? You know, I don't know why I ever went to fax machine school, but there it was, you know? Why would I want to do that? No, I want to learn a skill that gives me a high level of pivot, is light on its feet, and is highly adaptable. And it's focused on people. And that's what rhetorical sensitivity gives you, okay? So why is this relevant to leadership? Drew, why is this relevant to leadership?
Oh, well, you know, I guess in a basic answer, leaders have moments where they need to be absolutely rhetorically sensitive, and there are moments where leaders are not rhetorically sensitive and they are still in the same role. So for many reasons, but including those kind of two, leadership and a lot of what we're talking about walk hand in hand. You can't divorce them.
According to Forbes in 2013, this is how they define leadership. I kind of like this. Leadership is a process of social influence, which maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. So leadership has everything to do with people, has everything to do with working with others, building relationships, and inspiring others so that not just that you can reach your goal, their goal, but a common goal. Okay? So working with others is absolutely critical for it's a necessary part, a necessary function of leadership. Okay? So that's why we're here today. So what we're going to do, though, is we're going to kind of break this down into 2 parts of communication. So we're going to break out how does rhetorical sensitivity apply to 2 major parts of communication: speaking and listening. Okay? Speaking and listening. And because St. Francis said, first seek to understand, then be understood, we're going to start with listening.
Oh, did you say listening? Okay, cool. That's what I thought I heard. So, in initially talking about listening, folks, it's a little bit hard for us, I think, at times to understand the concept of listening because there's literally so much noise. Literally, so much noise around us. in our physical environments, in our mental state, right? And then that doesn't even factor in if there's another party involved, if there are other people around us in the space and we're trying to concentrate. Listening actually gets harder and harder to do the more noise that we invite into our lives and our environments. So it's actually a little bit easier to think about listening when you break it down into nonverbal, verbal communication, nonverbal and verbal communication. And something I want to throw out before we head into an activity, folks. We often feel like all the important things that we say, all the communication that we do that people are really hinging on comes from our words. But what I want to impart upon you all is that so much of what you're communicating to me right now, as you're not speaking, is in your eyes, in your clothing, whether or not that clothing has a brand on it, whether or not you're writing something when I am talking, whether you're sitting far, far in the back or way, way up here, up front. All of this stuff says something. We have no choice but to communicate, which means we have no choice but to listen and to, respond in kind. So when we talk about listening, here is the first activity we're going to do. And so my homie all the way in the back, I'm sorry, you probably want to come up here and partner up with one person if possible. If not, my people up here, go ahead, pair up with somebody. Pair up with one person. Pair up with one person. Okay. So with that person that you have paired with, and don't worry, my people online, I got you here in a second. I might ask a friend in the room to help us out with this activity, i.e. Tyler. So my people right here, and my people online, this activity is really going to help us understand how hard it is to separate verbal from nonverbal communication when trying to simply complete a task. And so the lesson here, folks, is that we use all of it. We use nonverbal and verbal communication constantly to complete a task. And it gets really, really hard when you isolate one form of communication from another. So one person in your group, and maybe just ask this question, can you draw? One person in your pair, can you draw? Go ahead and ask that question. Can you draw? Can you draw? Okay. If their answer is not very well, ask them this question. How well do you follow directions? How well do you follow directions? People online, stick there, I'm coming to you. Okay. So if you have a person in your pair that can follow directions very well, that person will need a sheet of paper in front of them, will need a sheet of paper and something to write on. Right? So just a blank sheet of paper, something to write on. Okay, cool. While that person is getting a blank sheet of paper, my people online, every single one of you, as long as you're following along, should pull out a sheet of paper as well. Pull out a sheet of paper as well. My people here in the room, if you have a sheet of paper in front of you, I just want you to do one simple thing. Look down at that paper and don't look up again until we tell you to. Just look down at that sheet of paper and don't look up again until I tell you to. My people and the other person in the pair who doesn't have a sheet of paper in front of them, your role here will be the person describing. So I'm going to put an image right up here on screen. I'm going to put an image right up here on screen. The person who is not looking at that sheet of paper, you need to describe that image in detail to get the person who is drawing it to draw it with as much detail as possible. I'll say it again. One of you is drawing, one of you is describing. I'm going to put an image right up here on screen. What I want you to do is to describe in great detail that image for that person to draw. Here's a bit of the trick. If you're describing, you cannot look at the drawing. You cannot look at the drawing. If you're drawing, you can only look at the paper. Tyler, I'm going to put the image on screen. Do you mind describing for our people online? Sure. Cool. Yeah. Okay, folks. So I'm going to give you just a few minutes. Okay, if you're online, avert your eyes from the screen and go ahead and try to describe this image in great detail. You can say the words, you can say whatever's in it, but the point is, try to get them to draw what's on screen in as much detail as possible. 5 minutes.
Okay, it's a circular seal. It's a seal, it says seal of the state of Indiana, kind of across the top half. In the bottom portion, it says 1816. In the middle, there's like a green plain, I guess, some geography, some higher mountains in the back. There's a sun coming up in the background, and in the foreground, there's a buffalo running, and it looks like a man trying to chop down a tree with an axe. He has like an axe kind of in a backswing. There's a handful of trees kind of in the foreground. So the picture is like within one circle, and then there's a second larger circle, and that's where it says seal of the state of Indiana, 1816. To the left and right of the 1816, there's like a little diamond and dot pattern. It's almost like a diamond, and then in each corner surrounding it are dots. And then to the right and left of each of those is almost like a little flower icon. Let's see. I'm doubting anyone's drawing in color.
You don't know that, Tyler. They might have green.
If anyone's got a green colored pencil, it's gonna do you really good in this image in the middle. There's a lot of green grass, but a little bit of blue sky up above. Like I said, a little sun coming up and over. The sun isn't just like a circle. It has like the rays sprouting out of it as well.
Okay, it's a donut. Okay. Yeah,
You're doing great.
Did anyone give me anything in the chat?
I can't go over there.
Oh no, let's see. Oh, they're not helping me out. You aren't helping me out at all. What else do you need to know about it, guys? Thank you. Yeah. You know, there's a guy swinging an axe. It looks like he's wearing blue jeans. He's got his legs kind of spread, like power stance. He looks like he's singing like Freddie Mercury or something. It's a white dude. He's with his axe. It looks like he's about to take a golf swing the way he's holding this axe at this tree. Oh man, what else? I said there were like some almost like mountains, some high geography in the background. It looks like there's about 3 or 4 really tall hills behind that. There's also there's some shadows of the trees that I mentioned. It looks like white man with an axe is also projecting a shadow. Looks like maybe in the very front there's some really tall grass for some reason, or it's just dark. I can't tell. The buffalo might be jumping over something, or that's just his gait. I'm not sure. This guy's very brave standing this close to a buffalo. That's all I got for you guys.
Okay, folks, that is time. If you were drawing, go ahead with us. And if you were helping them draw, look at the drawing. Let's compare. Let's see. I gotta see a little bit of what shook out here. Okay, did you get the bison in your picture? By the way, if you're online and you feel brave enough, we got the WebEx screen pulled up. If you want to just cut your camera on us and put your drawing on camera, you're welcome to do so. If you want to take your drawing and put it up on screen for us, that's fine. If not, that's cool too. Savannah not drawing in color, that's okay. But Savannah said Tyler's doing great. Oh, what we get?
Oh, that's not bad.
That's not bad. Hold on.
That's decently.
Let's see. Hold on.
Who's showing off? Savannah?
Hold on. Where is Savannah? No, it won't. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. Well, either way, we try. Let's go. Let's see.
That's good.
It does look good though, Savannah. Thank you. That's pretty good. Okay, my crew right here. Tell me, just with your drawing, is there anything that you missed from the image that was on screen? I can bring it back up to the screen.
Do you want me to show the online people that?
Oh, yeah. That's a great idea. What's that?
The dots going around the picture.
Okay, okay, you missed the dots going around the picture.
If you just share it, yeah, there you go.
There you go. Whoop, wait, that's your email. Sorry, Tyler.
Yeah, they can see it.
Okay, so good, good, good. So the seal, right? Okay, so you're missing some of the dots around the border. Okay, whatever, not a big deal. What about here in the middle? Anything missing in your drawing?
There's that symbol that's like 18, and I did whatever the date was, I didn't know how to describe it.
That's okay. That's okay. So that weird symbol, don't really know what that was. Okay, cool. What about you? Anything missing? Oh, shit. Oh, yeah, this random log. It's like, why is that in the seal? Why does somebody just put a dead log in the seal and come in? I don't know. Okay, cool.
Rebirth.
Oh, rebirth, and then the bison jumping over it is.
Yes, is meat winning over plant.
Thank you, thank you. That's why he's got the PhD.
Yeah.
Back there, what is missing from your drawing that's here in the seal? Oh, yeah, yeah. See, okay, so another person. This little symbols and all that good stuff. My people describing. My people describing. Here's the one question I have for you. What was your strategy walking in? How did you, knowing all of your communication constraints, start to formulate a plan in order to relay the information to this person? What was maybe a bit of your strategy? Or did you have no strategy? That's okay too. Let's actually maybe start all the way in the back. Did you have a strategy walking in?
No, we just went for it.
No, just went for it. Okay, next. How about you?
I kind of started from the outside in.
Okay, go ahead.
So I started off basically from the outside in as well. We use like the numbers on the clock and describe it.
Slick. All right, how about you? Okay, so outside in as well. So, something to think about, folks. When we know a little bit of the communication constraints put before us, and when we are given a task or a purpose, almost no matter what the constraints, we start to naturally adapt. We start to naturally formulate a way to communicate best with that person. So when Dr. Kyle is talking about rhetorical sensitivity, and in that you have roles, you'll need to adapt. There are many different ways to say the same thing. This activity is to help you realize that, yeah, when communication is limited or when we see the challenges in front of us, we have no choice but to adapt. We have to. We have to, right? And so this isn't some big mental feat. It's rather an establishment of awareness, folks, that you do need to adapt to different people in different situations. You absolutely need to think about your responses to that person so that, you know, maybe don't, for lack of a better term, piss them off, and maybe not want them to get any feedback from you in the future, not want to listen to you. And then conversely, you want to be aware of all the communication constraints that you're trapped inside of. The good news is the other person is trapped in there with you. And so there's still area and space for communicating. So when we talk a little bit, about listening, oh, it's the back. Okay, so listening is an intentional process, folks. Listening is an intentional process, but it doesn't always start that way. So there are three concepts that I often talk about in my Common 101 basic public speaking classes when we start to discuss listening. This is something taken from a textbook by a communication scholar named John William Haas. He's a nice dude. He talks about listening in three forms. First, listening is breathing, as in breath. Listening is breathing. The concept behind this, folks, is that when you're trying to establish a relationship with somebody or even yourself, listening is natural, much like breathing is, right? We're born listening if we have the ability, we're born breathing if we have the ability. And then over time, we take that for granted. We listen selectively. We forget how to listen to people maybe that we love the most. And most probably importantly, and worst of all, we stop listening to ourselves. And if we don't know how to listen to ourselves, how can we listen to others? So much like you might not know the best way to breathe, or maybe there is a type of breathing that you normally do that is actually adding stress to your life. You have to be conscious of how to breathe, just like you want to be conscious of how to listen to build that personal relationship. But listening is breathing, so that's one step. The second step, the second concept here is that listening is maintenance. Listening is maintenance. So think about like fixing a thing, taking your car to the shop to get checked up on, cutting the grass in front of your house, getting your laptop serviced, whatever it is, listening is maintenance. And folks, if listening starts off as this very natural, easy process for us, and over time it gets harder because of all the noise in our lives, and we lose the ability to maybe just naturally fall into rhetorical sensitivity, then you need to know you actually need to set time and attention to listen to others. And that is maintenance in relationship building. So listening to people, just being an audience, just being receptive, is the other thing that helps you build a relationship. And that's what the larger group. The last thing here is listening is gardening. Listening is gardening. As a teacher, as teachers, as an administrator, I'm sure you all know for sure and have had this experience, you can't make people grow. You can't do it. Can't make people grow. Can't make people want to grow themselves. The only thing that we can do as teachers or administrators or listeners is the same thing any good gardener knows. You can't make the plants grow. You can only create the environment where plants want to grow. Listening is a way to cultivate that environment. If people feel like you're going to listen to them, then all of a sudden, they feel like they have a place to be there. They can see themselves setting in some roots. They don't mind when, the inclement weather gets in a little bit more because they know you're essentially going to take care of them. So, think about that. Listening is breathing. That's really about us and our most intimate relationships. We take it for granted. Listening is maintenance. This is when we're working in different groups, different relationships outside of ourselves, but we need to maintain things, keep them afloat if we want to keep a good relationship. And then finally, in a larger sense, when you are leading a group of people, listening is gardening. You can't make the people grow. You can only try to create an environment where they want to grow. And so, now that we're done listening, let's switch over and talk about speaking.
Yeah, so listening is important. Obviously, it's connected to leadership. It's when people talk about qualities of an important leader. Someone that really moved them. The kinds of words that come up. Yeah, it might be words like powerful and charismatic, but a lot of times the words that come up are things like sensitive, paid attention, good listener, stuff like that. Made me feel seen. So yeah, listening is certainly one part of it. But listeners, leaders, they also speak. They speak a lot. And there's a lot of different forms of speaking that this could take. I mean, you got to imagine all the ways that leaders have to take words and use them to empower others. What was that definition again? It was to work with others to achieve a common goal, right? So you got to imagine the amount of communication involved in that. So we can't cover everything when it comes to speaking, but there's one piece I want to share with students because I think it's really important, and that's giving feedback. One of the things that's kind of unique to leaders is that they give feedback. And the funny thing about feedback, and I always try to tell this to my advisees, is that students are like showered in feedback. You're getting more feedback than you'll likely ever get in your entire life. You are like at the pinnacle of feedback central. And it's one of those things that you might have a love-hate relationship with, right? Because on one hand, you're like, oh, I'm tired of constantly being evaluated. But at the same time, you always know where you are, right? You always know where you stand. And sometimes it may not be as positive as you'd like it to be, but boy, it's so nice to kind of like be able to check in, especially with someone that you really value their opinion, okay? One of the biggest complaints I hear about from folks that are just graduating, and they just get in that first year, boy, are they excited. They're like, oh, I can't wait to get out of school, and I'll just like have my job, and I'll just feel like working and making money, and everything will finally make sense. It doesn't really work that way. And one of the things that folks who used to be students, the number one thing they crave, number one complaint, I don't get any feedback at my job. And when I get feedback, it's not constructive. Right? So the value of having that good feedback is so important because it takes, here's someone that we really value what they do. They're going to give us some reflection on our job performance or whatever, and that's going to do that thing Drew's talking about, helping grow, right? So there's also a whole piece about how to hear good feedback, but again, we don't have time to cover everything. So I'm going to give it back to Drew to kind of talk more about the process of giving feedback, and it involves rhetorical sensitivity. Okay. All right.
So, giving feedback, much like listening, it's natural. You can't turn off listening necessarily, but you can definitely disrupt it. You can mess with it. You can hinder it. All of that stuff, but you can't naturally, shut it off. As long as you have the ability. The same thing is true about feedback. I started off talking that you all are communicating things to me right now with your body language, with your eyes, with your clothing, with the branding on your clothes, whether or not you're wearing a lanyard. All that stuff says stuff to me, right? All that something communicates something to me. The same thing is true about feedback, right? So you can't turn that stuff off. As humans, we are meaning-making creatures. We have no choice but to communicate to other people. We can't help it. It oozes out of us. So again, what we're going to kind of talk about right now is just getting an awareness of the kind of verbal feedback we can get, right? Awareness of the verbal feedback we can get. If you're a note-taking person, there are 5 concepts in which we can understand how to give feedback. These 5 concepts are called the 5 forms of power. The 5 forms of power were developed in the 1970s by these theorists, French and Raven.
Are they dead?
What's that?
Are they dead?
They are dead now. They are dead. Crusty white dudes.
Yeah.
They're both dead. But they gave us some really interesting stuff.
Thanks, guys.
So, hey, you're not crusty.
Oh no, I'm just saying thanks.
Oh, okay.
White dudes are some good stuff.
You're not crusty.
Yeah.
You are good. So when we're talking about giving feedback, thinking about it through the 5 forms of power, French and Raven basically said when we exercise some sort of communication, some sort of responses to each other, there are 5 base forms of power that we are actually exercising, whether we're aware of it or not. But let's really just start to think about this like in a workplace context, right? Let's just imagine all this stuff at work. So the first form of power is coercive power. Coercive power. That basically means the level of power I exert over you is to negatively impact you, right? So you didn't turn in that thing on time, I'm gonna let you go, right? Or you didn't send that email, or you said the wrong thing here, or whatever, and I need to chastise you. Basically, in our relationship, I can do negative things to you, and that's the level of power I exert. The second one is the other side, reward power. I can do really nice things for you. I can do great things for you based on the work that you do. The third one is referent power. Referent power basically means the level of power I exert in a situation is that we are attracted to each other in some way. That doesn't mean romantically. That means any level of attraction you have with a person that isn't designated around what they can give you or a tax, right? It's the person. It's the person, right? I want to like you. You want to like me. That's referent power. The fourth one, pretty self-explanatory, is expert power. Expert power basically means referent power. So expert power basically means You know how to get that job done. You know how to complete that task to the best of its ability. So that's the level of power you exert over here. The last one is legitimate power, which is actually getting argued with more and more every day. That's the power you get strictly from a title. Strictly from a title, right? So-and-so is the president. That means you have to respect them, right? That kind of argument. So 5 forms of power that you can exert. So here's the next activity I'd like for everybody to do on your own. You can do it at home as well. You'll need a blank sheet of paper for this, or just like an open device, whatever it is you got, right? You can open up a blank document on your phone. All of that is fine. Sheet of paper, either, but you need something blank to write on. So you might recall those 5 forms of power I just went over: coercive, reward, reference, expert, and legitimate. Here's the activity. I want you to write out a statement that reflects one of those forms of power based on a scenario that I give you, right? So I'll give you a scenario. I'll tell you who you are in that scenario. I'll give you a form of power. On your blank whatever, go ahead, write out that statement that reflects that form of power. You'll get a very, very clear picture of what it feels like to give feedback when you're firmly in one of these forms, right? And I know y'all got experience with this already in some way or another. And same thing to you all, right? So here's the scenario, folks. You are the boss. You're the boss at work, no matter what that job is, right? You are the boss. You know what? I'm feeling, you talking about McDonald's. Let's say we're all working at McDonald's and you're the manager. Somebody just burned all the fries during the lunch rush. Like in the middle of the lunch rush, they just like overfried so many fries, they burnt all of it. Here's what I would like this half of the room to do. Write a 1-sentence response that reflects you are trying to exercise your legitimate power. So you're responding to this person. They burned up the fries in the middle of the lunch rush. It's bad. And when you're giving them feedback about what they're doing, you want to exercise the power of your title. So all you need to do, write out one response that reminds that person of the power that comes with your title and why they should listen to you. Cool? 1 sentence, that's it, 1 sentence. This side, I want you to use coercive power. Coercive power. So I can do something negative to you based on whatever it is you just did, right? I can do something negative to you based on whatever you just did. Cool. So take about a couple minutes, write that response, and we'll come around and share. Oh yeah, online folks, do the same thing. Do the same thing. This time, y'all, okay, do referent power, and maybe please drop them in the chat. Referent power, drop them in the chat. Just 1 sentence. Okay. Tyler, I like it.
Oh,
Wait.
this has just been me, Tyler.
Okay, not Tyler.
That probably makes more sense now. You're like,
Yeah.
what idiot has been
Well,
on
I
the
forgot
chat?
that your nickname is actually not Tyler. So
Yeah.
that's my bad. I forgot about that. Okay. Anybody want to volunteer a response before I just like call somebody random? Yeah.
So, coercive, I put next time you're fired.
Next time you're fired. Okay. Next.
Well, I have a very more passive one that you do that again, you're no longer employed.
Do that again. No longer employed here. Next.
I just said you don't have to be.
Okay. You're out of here. Cool. Next.
I said, I'm gonna call corporate and talk to them.
Ooh, I'm gonna call corporate. I'm gonna do the whole, you gave them the steps. That's good. That's good. Tyler?
Said you're gonna have to explain to all these waiting customers why it's taking so long.
Oh, that hurt. That
That
one
got
hurt.
to the bone.
That hurt.
That hit different.
That got me. Okay, let's start way, way far in the, oh, did you not hear it? Okay, one more time.
You're gonna have to explain to all these waiting customers why it's taking so long.
Yeah, that hurts.
Yeah.
That kind
Yeah.
of, all the way in the back. What about yours? You want to exercise your?
As a manager, I want to know your action for pride.
Great. Next. Ooh.
Whoa!
Oh, I said, as a manager, I listened for a long time and I'm in a situation before what's trying to work.
Ooh, that's interesting. That's a good response. Yeah.
I said you have to be more careful. I work hard for the job and I have to take responsibility.
Oh my gosh. Had to take
Big.
responsibility for my staff. Next.
As a manager, I would never do something that's full of burn all the fronts.
Ooh, right? So we're all exercising our legitimate power. Okay, let's try a new scenario. New scenario. And let's even switch up the forms of power. Anybody else in here?
No.
Okay, maybe not. Let's switch up the scenario a little bit. Let's say you are a department chair and some student from a class of one of your faculty members complained about how much you've been canceling class. Okay? You're a department chair, there's a complaint from a student about how much you've been canceling class. Right? So now you need to respond to your employee. Here's what I would like for you to think about, right? My group over here, let's use expert power. Okay? Write out a response that emphasizes the chair is an expert in this situation. And then back here, let's try reward. Let's try reward power, right? You want to give a response that exercises your reward power. Online, let's go with coercive. Let's go with coercive power. Let's go with coercive power. Let's go with coercive. Yes. Yeah, so you're a department chair. A student has complained about one of your faculty members in your department about how much you've been canceling classes. And so you gotta respond to it. You gotta address the issue.
So we're doing this.
No, you're the department chair talking to a faculty member who's been complaining about it. Yeah. Well, that's it. Think about it.
They're not here.
Okay, that's fine. Tyler Paul used to be here.
Yeah, if you're here.
Oh, he's here, both here and here. That's crazy.
If you're still watching.
Okay. And then we're getting a little bit close on time. So we won't hear responses from everybody, but we'll definitely hear maybe a few key examples. Let's maybe start over here on this side, the experts. Anybody? Yeah, first and then second.
I don't know if I did this right, but I said, to my employee, I suggest that you evaluate the 5 minutes after you.
Okay, you need to find a way to cope, figure it out, come on back. How much?
But I'm not sure if I got this either. But as the chair of this department, I cannot find one clear reason why a class has been canceled so many times this semester.
Okay. So here's the only thing I think, your response maybe got a little bit closer to the expert part of it. Yours really worked on legitimate power, right? So like as the chair, as the title of this thing that I hold, here's the action you should take, right? Whereas yours was like, based on some past experiences I've had, here's what you should do. Expert power largely would maybe formulate a response in, well, this is how it should actually go. Here's the actual function of it, and here's how I know that. It can be because I'm department chair, but it's more about, here's how you did that job wrong. Here's how I did that job correct. Cool? Okay, right on. Let's move over here. Just a couple of key examples over here for reward power. Anybody? Yeah.
I said great to the girl grade. I would love to see you.
Oh, okay. Interesting. What's the reward in that?
Just to see their performance grade.
Yeah, right. So hey, boom, there you go. That could go up. Anybody else? Anybody else got one? Yeah. I'm sorry, could you speak up just a touch more? Well, one more time. Say it one more time, loud as you can. You need to know a promotion is in your future, right? So here's the reward. Here's the carrot right here in my response. I can take it away, but here it is. Here's the reward if you do it, right? It's the same idea as like your parents saying, if you do this thing, I'll buy you ice cream. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll buy you. Right? So solid responses. Everything to take away from this, folks. There are 5 forms of power that we exercise all the time. We either giving or receiving feedback. The point of this is to, again, have an awareness for how we can receive feedback, but also what role, what position are you from, and what power do you exert? You may not have the legitimate power, the title, but you might be the expert, right? Also, they may hold reward power, but you may hold reference power. They may want to like you, right? So again, it's just an awareness in giving and receiving feedback, all of those different ones.
Yeah, so bringing it back to rhetorical sensitivity, right? Part of a big piece of power is appreciating roles, right? And understanding that, like, and there's a lot of different ways that I can say something. And there isn't one right way to do it. There's a lot of different ways to do it. You just have to draw in your situation and imagine, you know, what is going to be the best message with what I'm bringing to the table, with what this person is bringing to the table, based on the scenario, what I want the outcomes to be, right? And especially if you're a manager at McDonald's,
I mean,
no less, you know, you're trying to manage your team so that you can, you know, have the best service possible or meet the numbers or whatever, right? So it comes back to appreciating roles, clear language, adaptation, okay? Discernment, right? Don't need to overshare the information. And there's a lot of different ways to say it. And if you think about those 5 principles as a speaker and a listener, oh, it's going to give you such a rich toolbox, right? We just scraped the surface today. Just scraped the surface today. So if I'm going back to that first situation, right? So the first student, right? Student A. Student A calls me dad, right? Student A is kind of sensitive, amazing performer, is going to a final round. What did I say to that student? I said, you know what? I believe in you. I'm so proud of you that you're even here. And no matter what you do, you're going to be amazing. Go share your message. I'll see you when you're done, right? Give him a hug. Student B, that wouldn't do anything, right? Student B, I was like, I just pulled him in, grabbed him by the tie, and I said, get it done like you were born to do. He's like, yes, sir. You know, and then it's like comes in there and, you know, rocks it and whatever. So obviously, you know, you have to be willing to that, okay? And that's pretty much, do you have anything you want to tack onto that? Yeah, it's such an important part of communication. Do you all have any questions or just honestly any follow-up comments for us? We're a little over time, but we're not in a hurry. So if you have anything, questions, but what about?
it might be.
Yeah, that you all might be in a hurry. I'm just saying, you know, don't feel like you're holding us. We're happy to answer questions. Gosh, we're so good.
Okay, yeah, you did.
We're amazing.
You did.
Oh, we're so good. Okay, well, thanks. You can always you can find us on the 2nd floor of Oldenburg. We're pretty easy to find. If you have questions, you want to follow up, feel free to reach out. Okay.
Once you're in Oldenburg on the 2nd floor, the humidity gets real thick. You're closer to our offices. So just to let you know, right? Once the humidity, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm tasting it. Yeah, you close.
I want to go to McDonald's and get some bird fries.
Yeah, I know you. Okay. Okay. So
Bye.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Sounds like they may stick around for a few more minutes if you want to stop by and ask some questions. I have just a few last minute reminders as we're heading out. First off, make sure that you have checked in up at the top through the QR code. If you have been coming, I know many of you have been coming to each of these series for the past 5 weeks. Next week on March 4th, our final event of the series. We're going to be focusing on faith and ethics with Elizabeth Coit, who is the executive director of the Walker Ethics Center here on campus, as well as Evan Casey, who is a professor over at St. Joe Indy. So 7 p.m. again next week, last one. If you've been coming to all of the sessions, we have certificates for you that you'll be able to pick up at our final session next week. And if you haven't been able to attend all, but you're still looking for that certificate, you can make up your sessions online at marion.edu/TLC, which is where many of you have registered. And first year students, first year face-off, make sure that you check in up at the top too, and we will get the prizes. Right now, Claire 3 East is in the lead again. This week they got bundt cakes from Nothing Bundt Cakes. That was their prize this week. And computer students were in second. And Tyler and I have some wireless earphones for those students. Other than that, have a great evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. See you next week.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. No, thank you for inviting us. It's fun.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you for having us.